Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of NC-17. I'm Josh, this is Lisa, and today with us we have a very special guest who is no stranger to NC-17. He was on in our freshman year when it was just me. This is James L. Edwards. How are you doing?
Real good. How you doing?
All right, all right. Last time you were on, we did a movie review. We're not going to do that. This time it's all about you.
Yeah. My
uh,
favorite time.
uh, so just so you can catch up the audience and Lisa on your works and what kind of got you into the business and stuff like that.
Well, I actually started in 1985 when I was 12 years old. I had seen an ad in the local paper that they needed zombies for an independent film being made called The Dead Next Door. And at the time, I had no interest in acting. I wanted to be a special effects artist. The problem was, once I went in and got hired, they quickly realized I had no artistic talent whatsoever. But they liked my spirit, so they kept me on as a production assistant. And then from there, I kind of basically moved up to actor and then screenwriter, eventually producer. And now I'm directing my own films.
Yes. Uh, Speaking of directing, was your first film? Her name was Krista.
It was, yeah, that was my director.
All right, and it starred you and Cheyenne Day. I got that name right, right?
You did, yes.
All right. You wanna? Because I know I want to go all the way up to the new stuff you got coming out, but I'd like to touch up on just the stuff we touched up on before.
Yeah.
So her name was Krista. How did you come up with the inspiration for that film?
That movie was one of those where I never had any intention to direct initially. It was the inspiration for that film was when I first started thinking of the idea. I had just it was on my 40th birthday. I was going through my second divorce. I had moved back in with my parents with three kids. And I remember waking up on my 40th birthday and looking into the mirror and not recognizing the person in the mirror and going, "Oh my God, is this it? Is this how it ends?" And I kind of took that depression and kind of said, "Well, what's the absolute worst that could happen at my age?" And that's where kind of Krista came to be.
Oh yeah. All right, we got Abby joining us now too. She'll be on in a second. Uh, Hello, Abby. Abby, this is James. James, that's Abby.
Hi, Abby.
And so coming up with the casting of her name was Krista. I mean, I know the story because you've already shared it with me, but how did you come up casting Cheyenne?
Originally, Krista was meant to be a basically almost a reunion between myself and an actress that I worked with quite a bit in the 90s. And unfortunately, we were not able to make that happen. Right? I mean, during shooting, a decision had to be made whether or not we were going to continue or not. And I'm not blaming anybody, but what it comes down to is I'm just calling it artistic differences.
Yeah.
So I had to let her go, which left us in a bad situation because we'd already filmed 6 days worth of the shoot, and I needed to find an actress quick. So I basically every casting site, every filmmaker's Facebook page, everybody that I could think of, we did a casting call. And we ended up meeting with 73 actresses for the role. And it just so happened that Cheyenne was the very last one. And it was one of those where she was absolutely perfect for the role. And it couldn't have been better because, I mean, we were talking to actresses as far away as I know one of them had contacted me from Germany wanting to fly up and play the role. There was Los Angeles, there was Canada, but oddly enough, Cheyenne lived like 15 minutes from where I lived. We'd never spoke, and she really hadn't done any. I mean, she had done runway and print work, but not so much acting. She just nailed her audition. So my decision was let's give her a shot, but let's also spend the next probably I want to say 3 months in deep rehearsal, making sure that we both were comfortable enough with each other and kind of show her the ropes as far as that goes, and she did an amazing job. I couldn't be.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So before I turn it over to questions for them, I have one more thing. So in Her Name Was Krista, the story revolved around your character Steven.
Yes.
And not so much of like the brink of like, is he going crazy? Is this happening? But more along the way I looked at it, it was more along the ways of how much would one go to be loved? Would that
Right.
be a fair, accurate?
Oh,
Thing to say?
absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that I get, I'm not necessarily complaints, but people get confused because it's like, well, wait a minute, you're promoting this as a horror film, but the real horror, as far as them, doesn't really happen until almost the end of the film. It's like, well, if you're not seeing the horror of that movie until the end of the film, you're not really seeing what the horror is. The horror isn't about his actions at the end. The horror is the idea of getting older and becoming alone or irrelevant or just kind of fading away. So
Yeah.
that's the way I always looked at the film.
Oh yeah.
I don't know
Lisa,
if you guys,
oh, go
do you
ahead,
guys
Abby.
hear me? No, do you
Yeah.
guys hear me? No, I
Yeah.
honestly, I appreciate when something does that more, honestly.
Yeah.
And I just feel like sometimes audiences, it goes over their head a bit where it's like, if you can't appreciate what this is, and a lot of horrors like that, we feel for a
Right.
creature, we feel for somebody in it. Why did they go this way? And I think that's more interesting when you get that build up to it. And I like that more, honestly, personally.
I'm
I'm the same way. Yeah, yeah. Is that like my mom thinks I'm crazy because I'm always like, she's like, you're rooting for the bad guy. I'm like, am I though, or are you just not understanding the film?
Yeah, right. No, story of my life where I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta look at it, especially with horror. You gotta look at it from a different point of view and go, but is it? But what's the scary part about this? Because I mean, that's almost all horrors like that, where you can take it from different ways. Is it scary that something's coming after you, or is this idea of other things being a factor scarier?
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, especially as an actor, I love playing villains. And the reason I love playing villains is the fact that you have to take the opportunity as an actor to find out nobody thinks they're a villain. So you have to take the opportunity to kind of figure out, okay, why is this person doing this and why does he feel it's okay? So
Yeah.
Hey, you're talking to somebody who Hannibal Lecter is my favorite character of all time. I'll tell people, I'm like, but is he? But is he? And I'm like, no, he's blatantly a very bad guy. But no,
Yeah.
villains are what make us go, we like a hero or we like somebody getting it. And it's if the villain isn't there, then why are we here?
Right.
Yeah. So with Her Name Was Krista, when you guys were done filming it and everything, and you saw the final end product. Now I remember what you told me, but can we refresh the new people that what your feeling was? Was it accomplishment or was it we're onto something really good here?
I'll be honest with you, and this answer always makes me seem arrogant because again, at the time I'd been doing independent films for over 30 years. But my problem was I was always, as an actor, the whole reason I decided to direct was because as an actor I was not getting the roles that I wanted to play. And as a writer, I'm always appreciative when somebody decides to make one of my scripts, but it never turned out the way that I wanted it to, simply because of the fact, I mean, for good reason, the director is going to want their own personal stamp on it. This was my opportunity to basically be in complete control. And honestly, it's one of those things where it's probably film wise my most my most proud accomplishment. I couldn't be happier with the way it turned out.
Oh, yeah. I want to say first and foremost, and we've known each other a couple years now. So I've seen you in other things, and most people are like, well, these people are this kind of actor, this person's that kind of actor. I think you're a method actor because you can put yourself in the endless romantic hope kind of guy. You've been a preacher. You've been an office worker. I mean, you name it, you've been it, And then with this new one coming out, I think you're going a different route, which I'm actually really excited for. But going into that, let's talk about one that we didn't talk about before: MILFs versus Zombies.
Oh God. Okay.
What a great title. Can we just say that? That really grabs you. I like that.
What was so watching that movie in the first place? I was like, okay, I'm a zombie freak. I love zombies. My favorite
Right.
Lisa's favorite genre probably too.
Mhm.
But what drew you to that movie?
Um, this is a long story, and I apologize ahead of time. But there was around 1999. I was doing a horror convention pretty much against my will. My ex-wife it was a Dead Next Door reunion, and at the time, the director and I were kind of on the outs, and I didn't want to appear. It was the 15-year anniversary of the Dead Next Door. And I didn't want to go, but my ex-wife's like, look, you know what? Let's go. You can put on your Dennis Leary jacket and be obnoxious. I'll dress like a slut and I'll hang all over you. Let's just do this. So I'm like, okay, fine. I don't get into the convention even. I'm in the elevator when she turns to me and goes, so who's all going to be at this thing? And I'm like, just your usual direct of freaks and weirdos. And this little pudgy 12-year-old kid who's in the elevator with me looks up at me and says, I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Edwards. I'm your biggest fan. We drove all the way from West Virginia to meet you. So I feel like a total schmuck, and I immediately go into save ass mode. I like put my arm around him. I'm like, I'm not talking about the fans. I'm talking about the idiots I used to work with. Come here, kid.
I love that. I love that.
So sweet.
So we're hanging out, and the kid kept in contact. And when he got older, he started directing his own films, and now he's a very accomplished independent filmmaker. Well, he had reached out to me and asked me if I would be willing to be in MILFs versus Zombies. and it was one of those where we couldn't quite coordinate how to make it work, but I did have friends that had studios in my hometown because he's in Maryland, I'm in Ohio. So I filmed this little cameo as the Reverend, and yeah, I mean, again, it's not my kind of film. I'm not gonna lie, but I mean, good to him. He's doing his thing, and he's, like I said, he's very successful with it.
All right. That movie, I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, I could pull the movie out, but I don't want to do that because there's like graphic content on there you can't really show.
Right.
But I will say that watching that movie, there are certain scenes in that movie I'm flabbergasted that got put on film, but I'm also excited it got put on film.
Right. Well, it's funny too because the best scene in the movie, he ended up getting a deal through one of the smaller distributors at the time, and the best scene in the movie they cut out in order to put in Family Video when it was still around. So it's like anybody that was going into it watching the Family Video version, it's like you don't know what you're missing. So
That's
I got
funny.
the unrated version. So
you know the scene I'm talking about.
I'll just say this: the kitchen scene.
Yep, that's it.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I
you
go-
have to. I mean, that when you have a title like MILFs versus Zombies, you gotta know going into it, right? Like, I mean, come
Yeah,
on, now
yeah.
you gotta know going into it. Like, why even? I'm just saying, there's a certain thing that you're reaching out to when you're like, hey, MILFs versus Zombies. I love it. I love that title. That's great.
Titles too. I know he's just what was it? He's premiering Crackoon right now. So
Oh yeah. Actually, the original title I believe was it Four MILFs versus Zombies.
they threw the title like that on there for the Family Video release, but
Yeah.
but the actual Mills versus Zombies.
All right, yeah, that's the one I got, not the 4-1. But
Right.
all right, so let's move on to Brimstone Incorporated.
hmm
Okay, so you kind of switch shifts from what you did with her name was Krista to this one. And going into this one, what was your mindset? And very good friend of NC-17 and also a very personal friend of yours, Drew Fortier, who hands down probably one of the best guitarists I've ever even heard play. But going into that, what was your mindset of like, this is what I want? And these, because it seemed like every single person played the character to a point to where it was like no one else could play it.
Well, and honestly, that's true because I tend to write specifically for my core group of actors. I like to work with the same people. And that movie came about initially because my my cinematographer on Krista, Gordon Cameron, had come to me and said, "Listen, I have a couple of leads on some possible financiers for one of your movies. He's like, the problem is you've made a basically a 2-hour movie with some incredibly offensive content at the end. And A, they're old, they're not going to sit through a 2-hour movie. And B, by the time they get to the end, if they do, they're going to ask you to leave. So what his idea was, why don't we make some short films and kind of that way show them what we can do? And I was against that initially because I don't know what to do with short films. I'm very wordy as it is. So the possibility of me writing a short film seemed to me pretty non-existent. And B, once it's done, what do you do with it? You know, you can't really make any money off of it. I don't particularly believe in festivals or convention or festivals. So what do you do with it? But I love horror anthologies. So it's like, well, if we can figure out a way to make a movie with, say, 3 shorts and a wraparound, I'd be all for that. So that's kind of how that came about. And I purposely, as I was writing them, was like, okay, so I know these are the people that I want involved. What would I like to see them do? Because my thing as an actor that always aggravated me was the fact that I constantly get the same roles over and over again. I was either the funny best friend or the scumbag, one or the other. That's all I ever got. So I'm like, okay, if I've got somebody, the only person that I typically don't cast out of type is Drew, only because of the fact he's got that whole friendly scumbag thing down so great. It's like it's difficult for me to picture him anything else. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not an actor, but I can see where just like in a workplace, if somebody went and said, I'm going to cater to something that you are good at and I know you, I think that must be really fun as an actor and people that work with you. I'm just saying like I think that's cool. I think that's awesome to work with the same people and go, hey, I know what you're good at and we're going to still make it creative, but we're going to play to these strengths that I know you guys have. That's not only, I don't know how to put it, where it's just, that would be fun to me. Where I'm like, if someone's like, hey, Abby, I know you're really good at talking a whole lot.
yeah.
Like, you go out there and talk a lot. I'm like, oh yeah, good. That's awesome. Thank you. So that's really cool. I like that of working with the same people, and it can come off like, oh yeah, we're getting the same thing. But it's I feel like when you're in that same core group working in any environment, that's fun and that's cool. And it's cool to know your own people. And I respect that. I think that's really cool.
Well, thank you. I mean, like I said, my goal as a filmmaker was always to kind of build a family. You know, I wanted to. I'm very adamant that it's very rare where I'll work with somebody one time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very rare, and that's not to say I don't want to bring new people into it, but I'll always want my core group of actors and crew involved.
You trust them.
Right, exactly.
I trust you. I work with you. I worked in a factory for 10 years, and guess what? There were certain people that I'd go, I think they can put in headlights better than this person over here, and I just trust it. Can we just make that work tonight? So it's a trust thing too at any job, but when you're creative, like you are, that's just really cool, I think. And like you said, it's not saying nobody can come in, but it's, I know what we bring to the table. I know who to rely on here. I know what I can rely on here. And that, when you're making anything or working anywhere, that's a gift. That's a gift to have people around you you're working with to go, oh, I can trust them.
I mean, since I'm always asked if I have any suggestions or advice for people wanting to become a filmmaker, specifically a director. And my advice is always the same. It's surround yourself with people that are more talented than yourself. That's it. I mean, as long as you've got that, you've got a movie.
I feel like some people are intimidated by that though. And they don't know it yet, where I'm like, man, if you're good at something, come on in and do this. Oh, if I need, that's awesome. But I do feel like some people think that's a great idea, but the fact that you practice it speaks volumes about you too, of going, hey, I might lack here. I'm going to bring somebody else in or whatever it is. Or I know you bring this to the table that somebody else doesn't, or whatever it is. And that's cool. I like that.
Lisa, you got anything?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how with writing, directing, and acting, you can bring a different part of like yourself to the table. Do you find you can like you prefer a certain one for what you can bring to the table in those roles?
Oh yeah, I'll always be an actor first. Let's put it. I'll always be an actor. In fact, to be quite frank with you, I've always felt like a hypocrite as a director, only because of the fact I have no deep burning desire or love to direct film. I don't. What I do though, again, is there are specific roles I want to play. I don't play well. as far as on a creative side, I'm not really good with playing well with others as far as my vision goes.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
like the opportunity to be the director, to make sure everything is precisely the way you, or at least a movie, no matter what you do, will never be 100% what you want it to be. But at least by directing and being in charge, you'll know, you'll at least get as close to what you want as possible. Not to mention the fact, and again, not to be arrogant in the least bit, but one of the things that helps me as a director is the fact that I've been an actor for so long. I know how I know the questions that I have when I'm on a set that I don't get asked as a direct when by directors. So it's like, okay, this will be a good opportunity for me to really be able to kind of help people along with that.
Oh, yeah.
That was going to be my question that I piggybacked off of. I was going to say,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm assuming doing or being an actor, it also helps you doing these other things of going, I've been through this, I've been through that, I've gone through that, and I know what to expect here, or it helps bring that around. And
150%. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that every director should at least do a cameo in somebody else's film. Every director. And I mean, it really gives you the opportunity to see different directing styles. Make you kind of wakes you up to the thing. It's like, oh, I never thought of doing that with an actor, kind of thing. So
well, it's like, how can you expect somebody to do whatever if I'm not willing to put myself in that position, or never have, or don't understand it? Then how can you ask others to do something? It's like when I've gone through it firsthand.
Oh,
Speaking of
100.
speaking of cameos and other people's directing movies and stuff like that, you had a small role in Dwellers.
Yes.
All right, so again, uh, name drop Drew 48 directed that movie, wrote that movie. I knew going into it, I was going to expect something a little bit different.
Right.
But your character, what's funny is like I've talked to Drew about this a couple times, and it's like your character came across as more of a, this is what's going to happen, this is how you're going to do it, and that's it.
Right.
So when you, to piggyback off what you said earlier about scumbag and stuff like that, is that how you were trying to be in that movie?
I kind of, because again, Drew basically came to me and said, look, I've got this idea that it's basically over exaggerated versions of him, myself, and Doug Esper in these situations. And I've known both, I've known Drew longer, but I've known both of them for years. So it was like, okay, this will be nice and comfortable. Now, I'll start off by saying that age is very humbling. So I'm very easygoing now. I'm very open to ideas. In the 90s, when I was acting pretty much full time, I was a bit of a pain in the ass. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a bit of a diva. And I kind of wanted to build my character as, okay, what if I had continued to be that pain in the ass? And one of those where I thought about it after the fact, after the movie came out, and I'm like, oh man, now everybody's going to think I really am that asshole. But it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah. Let's go back to her name was Krista for 1 second.
Yeah.
Now, that movie, I saw the horror, and I remember saying this before. I saw the horror through the beginning to the end, because this man's journey going from point A to point Z, I mean, it was a Rocky Mountains up and down, left and right, and his true love for this woman drove him to a point to where he started doing things.
Right, with the things we're not allowed to say.
Right. And but would you classify that as a romantic horror or a love horror?
I always classified it as a romantic horror, and that actually got me in trouble because of the fact that when Amazon released the film, it gives you several options as far as how you want to put the film. Well, the first one I put was horror, and the second was romance. Well, Amazon has an algorithm. So I was discovering about 6 months after it had had its initial run, I was noticing a barrage of kind of not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, they were negative reviews, but it was more they were shocked and disgusted. They didn't hate the movie, or they didn't say the movie was bad. They're like, I can't believe that Amazon would put this on and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, what is going on? Well, then a buddy of mine called me and said, I've got a funny story for you. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, my girlfriend and I just watched Sleepless in Seattle on Amazon. And after the movie, it showed up that if you like Sleepless in Seattle, you should check out Her Name Was Chris.
I was so hoping that's how that story was gonna go.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, I kind of understand now why people are getting upset. I'm sure they love the first half of it, but the second half, not so much.
Oh yeah.
That's funny.
So we got about 10 minutes left. Let's touch up on your newest movie. Side effects may vary. Let's go into that a little bit. Would you like to explain to the listeners and everybody what that movie's about?
The best way I can describe Side Effects May Vary is it's a black comedy about what we all went through during the pandemic. And I tried my best to kind of goof on both sides. I don't have a horse in the race as far as that. I know it's a topic that a lot of people are very touchy about, so I wanted to make sure not to play it either side. But it's kind of a love letter to the old, not only the old 50s and 60s panic movies, but also like the 80s slime fest, like Incredible Melting Man was a tremendous influence on the film. And the thing that I'm most happy about with it is the first time director J.R. Bookwalter has made a film in 23 years. And the fact that he would trust me to not only write the film, but also star in it and produce it, I couldn't be happier. And I'm really, really proud of this movie. It's turned out. It's got Sasha Graham, Tina Krause, Brink Stevens, Drew is in it, obviously, Floyd Ewing Jr., Wendy Zier. I couldn't be happier with the way the movie turned out.
Brink Stevens, one of the original scream queens in the B movie genre.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her in Nightmare Sisters.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, to me her crowning achievement is The Haunting. Haunting
Okay.
Fear. Haunting
Haunting
Fear.
Fear. Mm-hmm.
When I watched that movie, I was like, that's going to be a bona fide actress no matter what, you know? And the fact that you got to work with her, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit jealous, but
the thing that, first of all, Brink is absolutely amazing to work with. So professional. I mean, so just fun. And the thing that I was really happy about was the fact that this is a very, very comedic role for her, which she doesn't get the opportunity to do very often. And she just nailed it. She is, without a doubt, one of the best parts of the movie. And like I said, she's just a doll. She's just so much fun to work with.
Oh yeah.
This might be a lame question, but I just like to know things like this.
Yeah.
Do you have a project you had just the most fun on? Just literal, just fun.
The most fun? Huh.
I know that's like a basic thing, but I'm just like,
I wanted to ask that, but I was too scared to. I'm glad you did ask me.
What was the thing you just had fun on? Like you just had, it was just fun to work on the most.
See, I'll be honest, as far as fun goes, it was probably Side Effects, only because of the fact that I got to do everything that I wanted and I didn't have to direct it. So it's like, okay, I'm not in charge. I was the producer, but it's like, hey, you know what? This is on you. Because the problem is, it's like, I had no doubt at all that the movie was going to be a lot of fun. I knew between the fact that JR was coming back into it, the people that we had involved, the script, patting my own back, but but that being said, it could still go down the tubes at any second. Any project can. Mm-hmm. So it's always comforting that it's a lot easier going on the set for someone when the weight's not on their shoulders. It's like, well, if this thing stinks, he directed it, you know. But
right, yeah. But
it was.
I think things like that are cool. Like to just go, hey, going to work every day for that was enjoyable.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, the worst day I've ever had on a movie set is still better than the best day I ever had working a regular job. So, I mean, I got no complaints.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so with 6 minutes left, James, I would, if you would like to plug all your socials and where people can see your movies and stuff, you're more than welcome to do that.
Oh, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook under James L. Edwards 3. You can find me on Instagram through my production company, Buffalora Entertainment Group. And also, fingers crossed, because it's been a long road, supposedly we are going to have my most recent directorial effort, Trivial, out by this summer. And I'm really, it's a revenge thriller that essentially 5 people are trapped on a bizarre game show where you get the answers right, you advance to the next level. You get the answers wrong, it's curtains.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
You can check out his films. Her Name Was Krista and Brimstone Incorporated on Amazon Prime.
Oh, as well as Tubi. And if you're into physical media, you can go to makeflix.com.
Let me
Definitely.
tell you, people are sleeping on Tubi and people are sleeping on Pluto. People are sleeping on that. There are so many gems on both of those where I'm like, get on this, man. I swear, I'm like, I watch more on Tubi than I do Netflix. I'm not even lying when I say that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I would be amiss if I did not at least mention our sponsor, which is Spin City /Static Tape. I forgot to do that at the beginning. I got excited. They're in Muskegon, Michigan. They're your physical media needs. They have Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, Laserdisc, you name it, they got it. They got music, CDs, albums, all that stuff. Spin City /Static Tape. Definitely check them out. One more thing about Her Name Was Krista. Now, do you remember my original rating of it?
Yes.
It has gone up.
Has it?
It is now a 9.5.
Okay. I love that.
And you can ask Lisa, I don't change my ratings that much. But when my wife can sit down and see the love in a horror movie, you got to get more points.
That speaks volumes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's not into horror.
Yeah, but we sat down and watched it recently for the second time together, and when she found out that we were going to interview you again today, she wanted me to tell you that you did a really good job, and for a horror movie, you made her cry during a horror movie.
Oh, well, tell her thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Will do.
Realistically, my goal, I love the fact that you've upped your rating, because I set out to make a movie that sticks with you, and I like the idea that you've revisited. So that's great.
All right. I'm not even going to lie to you. I've watched that and Brimstone Incorporated at least 10 times each.
Well,
so.
I appreciate so much.
Oh yeah, it's good. I can't wait to see Side Effects May Vary.
Good.
I wanted to make it when you guys came here to Michigan, but I had to work.
That figures.
Yeah. But I'm sure I'll catch it, and when I do, if you would like to come back on and we could discuss it more,
I would love to. Yeah, whatever is good for you guys. I thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thank you. We got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna not go overtime this time.
Well, I was going to say, I have a question that I ask everybody when I talk to people, and it is, do you remember the first movie? Not one that was your favorite. Do you remember the first movie you saw in a theater?
Oh, you know what the sad thing is? I think it was Fantasia.
Oh, that's a good one. What's wrong with Fantasia?
Even as a kid, I remember thinking, I don't think I'm stoned enough for this. So.
Right, that too. And then I always ask people, and then what was the movie that you saw that you went, I want to know more about this? Maybe not work on it, but I want to know more about this life, how this was made or put together.
That was what was it? I remember the movie that actually made me get into horror was the original Night of the Living Dead. And
nice, perfect.
I was 9 years old at the time, and my uncle basically said, "Hey, check this out," put it on the TV, and then left. And I'm like,
it's always the uncle. It's always the uncle. My uncle, I was like 11, and he was like, "Here's The Exorcist, we rented it," and the Burbs. Josh, that's my favorite. But I'm like, it's always the uncle going like, "Yeah, parents can deal with this later. Here you go."
All right.
But I always just think that's curious, because I'm like, I remember the movies that I went, how did you make this, and how was this a thing? And I always just think it's interesting to ask anybody who's into film or works on film, how.
Right.
All right, so we got under a minute. I'm going to say, James, thanks for joining us.
Thank
Abby,
you.
as always, thanks for coming on this journey with us. Lisa, you're my ride or die in this podcast world. Thank you. And until next time, stay NC-17.